Welcome. My name is Penny Rosema, and you're listening to the Cookware Manufacturers Association podcast. You can find more information about the association from our website, cookware.org. One of CMA's goals is to keep our members informed, and in this podcast, our topic is packaging material. Mike Smith is our guest. Mike is a respected packaging industry veteran. Through his unique approach to sourcing and his CFO orientation, he saved tens of millions of dollars for his employers. And today he'll share some of that cost information knowledge. Now, you're going to love this podcast, and if you'd like to know more about Mike, you can contact him directly at mikesmithcfosavings@gmail.com. Mike Smith, CFO Savings, all one word, at gmail.com. And we are thrilled to have Mike with us today. So hello, Mike. Welcome to our podcast and our topic on packaging material.
Well, thank you, Penny. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, and you said it's hot where you're at in Atlanta.
Yes, it's 95 degrees and very muggy. So summer started and it's not quite June yet.
Oh, well, let's start our questions today with telling us, kind of a little bit about yourself and your approach and how you came to your approach in packaging procurement.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, Penny, I started my career in finance with a Fortune 500 food company, and I was pulled into some merger and acquisition projects. And later in my career as a CFO, I completed an M&A transaction that created significant value at a very low cost. And then during my 13 years with a leading global packaging manufacturer, one of my roles was also M&A integration and synergy achievement. On one single M&A project, we had an initial target of $52 million in savings, and we achieved $104 million in savings 2 years ahead of schedule. A significant portion of those savings came from procurement projects. We would bundle up the spend and get better pricing. We'd also look at creative approaches to value drivers and how we could leverage those value drivers to increase our savings.
Wow, $104 million in savings 2 years ahead of schedule. You were a popular contact, I'm sure.
Yes.
So you mentioned value drivers, and for our listeners that might not be familiar with the term, would you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, this is where my CFO training experience has proven to be a differentiator with regards to my approach to procurement. I completed the Mergers and Acquisitions Certificate Program at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. And I also had negotiations training with Max Bowerman from the Harvard Business School and Stuart Diamond from Wharton, both very accomplished leaders regarding negotiations and strategy. One of the key learnings from this training that I had regarding acquisitions and negotiations was understanding the different value drivers for both the sell side and the buy side and how important that was. And then framing your negotiation strategy around creating value for both organizations, maximizing the size of the pie. So in simple terms, value drivers are different levers that influence value for either party. One might be volume. So for example, increased volume could create value for both sides, conceivably a better price for the buyer, and then increased total gross profit for the seller.
I like one of the key things that you talked about that is looking at the negotiation from both sides, taking two views of it, the full view of it. We often talk about that, in negotiations for sure.
Yeah.
The next question I have is, it's probably the next pressing question I can imagine listeners thinking about is, how do you find value drivers that impact packaging? Can you unpackage that for us?
Yeah, I'll start. So this is where having a CFO perspective can create significant value or help identify opportunities that a normal procurement professional might overlook or feel they can't influence because that's not how they were trained in procurement. When a CFO looks at packaging or an industry, he or she would start with review of the market prior to pulling together any RFP. And so it's really about developing a long-term perspective on that market and then developing your strategy around that. So it's building a 5-year plan and an approach and a strategy rather than the 90-day view, associated with an RFP.
I got that. All right. So how do market conditions impact the cost of packaging?
That's a good question, Penny. Well, it will directly impact your negotiation strategy. So with regards to packaging, there are 3 main cost drivers, of course: the substrate, the specifications, and then the performance attributes. So the substrates for corrugated packaging is a liner and medium, virgin or recycled. And for folding cartons, it's typically CRB, SBS, or CUK. Typically, the cost of the fiber substrate might be between 60 and 70% of the total cost of your package. So, and for plastic packaging, of course, the cost of the resin and crude oil will influence the cost of your packaging. So this is where the market demand comes into play. So during a tight market, packaging companies will be coming at you with price increases. Your contract might even include language on automatically absorbing any substrate inflation. This is procurement 101. All the procurement people understand this. Conversely, though, the packaging companies aren't as eager to reduce pricing when the demand is soft and pricing is retreating. At that point, the discussion will be around how much value they are creating for you through their R&D efforts and their customer support.
All right, this is really hot information, and we're going to come back to that last, statement about your R&D support and all that stuff. But and all this makes a great deal of sense, Mike. But I want to take a moment to remind our association members that CMA provides a monthly commodity report exclusively to our members, and in our report we include data that have cost drivers for the cookware and bakeware industry. Obviously, that includes metals, oil-based material. We're talking about polystyrene and polypropylene, and linerboard as well as international currency information we provide. So if you are a member of CMA, whether you're in procurement or engineering or in the marketing and sales side, you need to make sure you're watching for and paying attention to that commodity report. And if you're not getting that copy of that report and you'd like more information about it, make sure you contact us. And I'll give you some contact information at the end of this call. But again, we're at cookware.org, and if you're a member and you log in, you will have access to that monthly commodity report and historical reports. So thanks for giving me an opportunity for that quick plug, Mike. And remind listeners, we're listening to Mike Smith, and he's sharing his insight on corrugated packaging material. A brief recap of our last question to him was, during a tight market, packaging companies come to you with price increases, and they might even have that increases in the contract that automatically absorb those price increases. But conversely, they aren't as eager to reduce pricing, and that's where we're going to pick up our conversation with you, Mike. So where, with your CFO background and influence, where does this soft demand and price retreating, help us understand that portion of it and how you approached it?
Well, again, it's having a CFO level understanding of the market and the cost value drivers in play. For instance, you need to understand if your supplier is integrated or not, meaning do they manufacture the substrate that is used to make your packaging? Right now, almost all of the paper and paperboard substrate markets are soft, SBS especially, as well as liner and medium. You can delink your substrate buy from your packaging buy in order to drive significant savings during periods of market softness for the substrate.
Okay, let's think about, you use the term delink your substrate. How do you do that? Explain what that might look like for maybe an inexperienced new buyer.
Well, okay, in very simple terms, if you're buying $10 million worth of corrugated boxes, you need to understand how many tons of fiber that is. And so you want to produce or approach buying the fiber separately from buying the boxes. So that you can do that, if you have a significant amount of purchase volume. You can also accomplish this by converting from an integrated supplier to a non-integrated supplier, or by dealing directly with the substrate manufacturers regarding your purchase volumes of the fiber. Okay, and that can impact the price that you'll pay then for the liner or the paperboard.
But further explain, how does that create value?
Well, okay, I'm going to get into making the sausage now. So if you have any questions, interrupt, and I'll try to repeat. Okay. So integrated suppliers typically hold their substrate pricing firm and fixed at a price that's higher than the floor. So by floor, I mean that's the lowest price they will sell their substrate at in the open market. For instance, liner may be priced at $750 a ton right now. The liner manufacturers may be selling liner for export at only $400 a ton. That's a big difference. Those same liner manufacturers won't sell their liner to you for less than $750 a ton in the box price, but they will sell liner to other converters for pricing north of the export market or the floor. Okay. So liner manufacturers with excess capacity that they're exporting at a low price will typically sell to independent converters at a price between the ceiling, say the $750 a ton that we talked about, and the floor, the $400 a ton, they're getting in the export market. So how close to the ceiling or the floor depends on your type of business, the volume, the complexity, etc. But that's an opportunity to create a large range of value creation. So if you're currently paying $750 a ton for the fiber used to make corrugated boxes, and you get that fiber for $550 a ton by dealing directly with the substrate manufacturer, that's almost 30% savings.
And what I'm hearing out of all of this is it's about understanding the market, having conversations, and looking at all of your options. Yes. Good information. Okay, so let's talk about beyond the substrate integration. Can you explain a little more about the cost drivers in packaging.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier the three main cost drivers were the substrate, the specifications, and the performance. So I've talked a lot about the substrate. So the specifications, or the design of the packaging, and the amount of raw material used to create it have a significant impact on the cost. In the corrugated market, for instance, integrated converters want to sell you as much fiber, as many fiber tons as they can in the boxes that they're supplying. So any box specifications that they are recommending, they may be heavier than what is actually needed. Most companies can take anywhere from 10 to 20% additional cost reduction out of their box prices by right-sizing their material specifications. For instance, moving from 33-pound to 26-pound fiber without impacting performance.
So it's again about conversations the procurement side has with, if they have packaging engineering, or if their marketing or salespeople are requiring specific types of packaging, to make sure they have those deep conversation on what's really necessary versus what's on the specification. It's good information.
Yes, it's doing your homework on the design instead of relying on the suppliers to do that for you.
That's right. So you mentioned performance as a cost driver. Performance as a cost driver. Let's dive into that a little bit. What's meant by that?
Okay, so if you think again about looking at value creation from both sides. So when I talk about performance as a cost driver, I'm talking about understanding how your specific packaging requirements perform while it's being manufactured and also while it's being utilized.
Okay.
So performance on the manufacturing side, it means, are you placing long-run orders for thousands of units that provide for manufacturing efficiency and optimization, production optimization, or is your order pattern choppy and tend to be small runs? Those things will influence the cost of the boxes to manufacture for the manufacturer. By the same tokens, with regards to cost drivers, does the packaging run well on your equipment? Meaning, or does it cause downtime or costly damage issues, customer claims? Those, again, are cost drivers that need to be understood and considered when evaluating your packaging spend and your suppliers and, of course, your specifications.
So you're looking at lowest total cost. You're looking at that packaging material and where it goes through the whole operations and where it's causing extra cost to the organization, and then having those discussions with the appropriate people before you make those final decisions on packaging. It's great information. We had a conversation a little bit earlier about e-commerce, and how is e-commerce having an impact on corrugated packaging? Would you share some of your insight on that?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think it's a very topical topic as well. Well, first of all, I think there's 10% annual growth in e-commerce, and it's pushed the producers of corrugated and packaging to invest heavily in both additional fiber capacity and additional converting capacity. So the U.S. market capacity for fiber and fiber converting has grown substantially in the last 3 years, and expected to continue to grow for the next 2 or 3 years. And I think most of this investment has been driven by the kind of frenzied growth in the e-commerce sector. Well, e-commerce shippers are getting smarter. They aren't using as much corrugated. They're using more mailers, and they're using right-sized packaging to reduce the logistics cost and reducing dunnage and other waste that consumers don't like to deal with. So this means overall demand for corrugated may not grow at that same rate of the growth that they expect. That's planned with all the capacity increases. And there's companies like PackSize, who are based in Salt Lake City, Utah, that have developed equipment to manufacture right-sized boxes on demand. So it's a different approach to corrugated. So they supply the equipment, and you buy the fiber from them in bulk to make the needed corrugated boxes on site. This different model wipes out an entire layer of the supply chain. It also provides a lot of other additional benefits. Some of the things that I've seen are 30-40% reduction in cube volume, and also dimensional freight savings, 50% increase in the quantity of orders that you're able to put on a plane or a truckload, potential 60% decrease in void or filler. All of these things benefit the environment, and they support sustainability initiatives, but they're also great for the bottom line because they're reducing waste and they provide significant savings. So if you utilize e-commerce to sell your products, you need to explore companies like PackSize regarding making your own boxes on site at significant savings. And it's having the right size box for what you need. Even if you don't use e-commerce, making boxes on site is a great solution. If you're a manufacturer that uses a lot of small run orders of corrugated boxes, typically 1,000 boxes or less a run, you can obtain significant savings by using the box on demand model.
Yeah, it's all about conversation and looking at a bigger picture. This is great information, Mike. Appreciate it. We had another conversation about other market influences like China. What can you tell us about them coming into the market?
Well, that's another good question. So China and other foreign countries have raised their quality requirements on imported fiber. So U.S. recyclers that are we're generating a lot of fiber, through our recycling efforts. They're having a hard time meeting those standards. So the export demand right now for fiber, recycled fiber, is soft, driving down the market value and the cost of recycled liner and paperboard. I think ultimately you'll have countries that need low-cost recycled fiber sources like China. They'll eventually set up their own fiber operations in the U.S. where recycled fiber is cheap and plentiful. So they will make their own substrates here, and then I think long-term they're going to start exporting them back to their home country. That's a better value proposition for them. So over time, you'll see recycled fiber regain some of its lost market pricing as demand for this fiber increases.
Got it. Wow, what a great deal of information here, Mike. A lot of information in a short time. And I want to remind listeners that you can find a blog transcript of this conversation because you probably couldn't write your notes down fast enough. And that's on our CMA website, cookware.org. And you're listening to the Cookware Manufacturers Association. And, again, I want to thank you, Mike, for the information and your insight today. And let's remind listeners, if they want to reach out to you, it's okay to send you an email directly. We gave that email earlier, and I'll repeat it here, but you don't mind if someone reaches out to you directly, I suppose?
No, I'm glad to help. I'd like to hear from any listeners with, with any questions. I'm certainly glad to follow up with, additional information or.
That's great. So we'll have that link spelled out on the article, but I'm going to repeat it again here slowly. Mike Smith, CFO Savings @gmail.com, and Mike Smith CFO Savings is all one word with an S on the end of savings. My name is Penny Rosema, and of course we're recording for the Cookware Manufacturers Association. If you'd like more information about CMA, you can contact me directly at prosema@cookware.org, and my email is on the cookware.org site. The association, I want to remind you, is a proven valuable resource to our members. We maintain and update the engineering standards for the production of cookware and bakeware. We provide statistical reporting, like I mentioned, the commodity reporting that you would find linerboard information on. And we also have resources for retailers, including cookware training guides. Cookware manufacturers find that helpful when they're working with a new buyer that's perhaps bought lawn furniture last year and is now buying the cookware and bakeware. Getting those buyers up to speed on the information about the cookware and bakeware training guides are very helpful. So when you're a CMA member, you also find networking with the best in the industry. We have some incredibly great professionals in our organization. So again, you can find more information at cookware.org. Of course, we need your feedback. If this interview was valuable to you, send us a ring, reach out to Mike, send some questions or conversations to him, or reach out to me. And if you have future topics you'd be interested in, please let me know and we'll do an interview with that great expert as we had today with Mike. Mike, thank you. I can't tell you how much we appreciate the conversation and the information that you shared. And I hope it cools down a little bit in Atlanta for you.
Well, thank you, Penny. I've enjoyed the conversation today. I enjoyed talking with you, and I'm certainly willing to help. Anybody has any concerns or additional questions about the corrugated or the folding carton market.
I appreciate it. That's a great conversation, and that makes this podcast a wrap. Have a great day.